We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are.
Hey everyone, welcome once again to yet another spectacular episode of Two Noobs Talking. I guess we're going to TWO Noobs Talking. John is on a little bit of a mental break slash vacation. John, wherever you are, man, we're thinking of you and hope you're getting well. And we're looking forward for you to come back next week. But for now, I am joined by a very, very special guest, posing the, I guess you could say, or playing the role of Steve Murray is Mr. Illinois Smith, who I understand is running for president in 2024. Illinois, how you doing today, bud? What's going on?
It's going well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. I'm of course Matt Craig, regular co-host. I'm just along for the ride, of course. It's episode 67. But Illinois, I understand that you were on the most recent episode of Dr. IP. What exactly were you doing there, man? Can you give us a little insight?
I was trying to learn about how to, take trade secrets from other people.
Uh-huh.
I didn't get very far, though. He kicked me off the set.
I was going to say, but you need to return that spectrograph, right? I mean, at the end
of his Van de Graaff generator? I took more than that.
Oh, come on.
I took more than that. I took his whole first set. The blackboard and everything.
I know. He's kind of pissed off. I know Dr. IP personally, and just saying,
he's a wimp.
Well, you got to watch out for him. He knows intellectual property pretty well, very well, in fact. Yeah, that kind of deal. But we are happy you are with us with episode 67, and it's traditional around here that we immortalize numbers and everything. Who wore 67 in the city of Philadelphia, and
good luck with that this week.
Good luck with that this week. Nobody on the Sixers, of course. Hardly anybody on the Flyers. Maybe a couple of minor leaguers on the Phillies, but on the Eagles there were two that came popping of note.
Well, that's because the 60 numbers are the offensive linemen.
Oh yeah.
So
remember when?
Although I guess now the rules are they can wear whatever number they want, so maybe that'll go away. But
I was just going to say, Steve, do you remember, this is probably dating me a little bit, but back in the 70s, they would always block like this. That's how the offensive linemen would block. They basically would have their elbows stick out like this, and that's how they would block. They would not block with their hands. That's back in that's in the Don Shula days. 1970.
You lived in a sad, sad time, my friend.
Exactly. I don't know why they would do it like that, but, I don't know how that would really help. Open up a hole in the offensive line.
Dropping bows on the defensive line.
Doing something like that, maybe. Getting those elbows up. Kind of a deal. Who knows? But yeah, slim pickings. You got Jamal Jackson, who we both remember. I think it was
he was okay. He was all right.
Decent, yeah.
He's the one who came after Honey Buns, I think.
I believe you're right.
As the center before Kelsey.
Yep, before Kelsey. Yep.
I believe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Nate Herbig currently is wearing it now for the
Good for him.
Which is great. I don't know if he's going to be playing in the game or not. I have no idea, offensive line a whole bit.
I saw what I thought was an injury report. And his name was on it, but I can neither confirm nor deny that what I saw was accurate, or if I was lucid when I was reading whatever it was. Probably was not paying attention. But I saw his name, so
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I think there was one other guy that was back in the 1950s, Proverb, which I think is a really cool name to name somebody. If you're going to name somebody, you got to name them Proverb, man. You know what I mean? Give them a wise saying. Give them a wise name.
I don't know, man.
He's a wise guy. I don't know, but
Newsy from last week, I think, is better than Proverb. But I'll give you a Proverb is pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. But Newsy's pretty cool too. That's for sure. That's really, really funny. But as always, Steve, we got a lot to get to. Sans, of course, John, but we have a interesting little collection of articles here for our 67th episode of Two Noobs.
Make
And
John proud.
yeah, yeah. This first topic here is very, very troubling, interesting. Of course, like leading into this, yesterday the Supreme Court of the United States basically struck down Biden's vaccine mandate, basically saying that OSHA had to, basically make sure that, companies with 100 employees or more had to be vaccinated. Well, that is out the door. That is completely booted. We'll get into that probably next week when John returns, because I'm sure he'll have something to say about that. But this is a very interesting and also very troubling article from Yahoo. Canadians react to Quebec decision to ask unvaccinated adults to pay up. And essentially, the premier in Quebec, Francois.
It said ask. It said ask.
Well, yeah, decision to ask unvaccinated adults to pay up. That is a headline from Yahoo News.
That headline, yeah, okay. Go into the actual article because that headline is inaccurate.
Let's dive right in. Quebec Premier Francois Legault announced Tuesday that unvaccinated adults in the province will soon need to pay a health contribution, quote unquote.
Tax.
The amount is still unknown, but Legault indicated that it would be a significant health contribution. Tax! Sorry. He added that those adults who are refusing to get vaccinated are putting an important burden on the province's healthcare system. I think it's normal that the majority of the population is asking that there be a consequence, the premier said. And of course, Trudeau, that bastion of smart up there in Quebec, Justin Trudeau, saying like, well, we haven't really talked to Quebec just yet because we have to figure out exactly like how is this going to be done, which means that they really don't have a plan for it. But obviously, Steve.
Which also tells me Trudeau may not be behind this 100%.
Yeah.
This may be the Quebec going out on their own again.
Yeah. And in fact, I think I remember seeing a TikTok video of a Canadian protest. I think it might have been in Toronto somewhere. And there were thousands of people just like doing a peaceful protest through the streets of Toronto. Essentially, I mean, Ontario, it's a different province, obviously, than Quebec. But the whole idea of like they're trying to tamp it down as if it's like March 2020. And here we are. It's, last I checked, it's January 2022. And Omicron is definitely present, but it is a faster and less severe disease. Very fortunate, knock on wood, in that regard. But let's
one in which Lord Fauci now says we're all going to get,
which I can't wait to get. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to get it living alone in this apartment. I have no idea. But Steve, let's talk about this article in Canada losing their minds. I mean, I almost want to start a hashtag Pray for Canada. I think it's very close to that. Wouldn't you
that
think?
May already exist.
I think so. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. We already knew Canada was in trouble because they've gone back into lockdown mode. Mm-hmm. I think provincially and nation. I don't know about nationwide, but I know at least provincially they've had a lot of serious lockdowns, which, like you said, were March 2020-ish rather than dealing with things as they are today.
Yeah.
But this Quebec thing just takes it to a whole other level. Mm-hmm. I'm not usually one to go down the slippery slope argument because I think that tends to get exaggerated usually. But when you read the reactions in this article from Canadians upon hearing this news,
it's not good.
It's not good, no. And they know it. I mean, okay, so I understand the argument that unvaccinated people are catching COVID and are going to the hospital, but so now if your cholesterol is too high, are you going to pay a health contribution tax?
Yeah.
If you are at risk of an aneurysm, if you have an aneurysm and you're brain? Are you going to have to pay a tax?
Heart attack, that kind of a deal. I mean, same deal, I would think, right? I mean, if you think about that, you get
Yeah.
a heart attack once, you survive it. Are you going to have to pay fines on top of that? That's a good point. Some of the I'm going to read a couple of the tweets here. This is from Andrew Bozery, a medical doctor. As a physician who has never received a dollar from pharma, I believe I have been as pro-vaccine as any in the country because they save lives in our healthcare system. But Quebec taxing individuals who are not vaccinated is regressive and will undermine the Canada Health Act. That's from a doctor there. Sean Rouse wrote this, quote, I'm of two minds on this. Certainly the unvaccinated could cost the healthcare system more. However, where does this stop? Smoking, drinking, unhealthy weight charges, slippery slope. Quebec, and then basically he quotes the article. Another one here. It's @_Vic Smith. I'm a resident of Quebec. I'm triple vaccinated. I've lost my first and second job many times since March 2020. I've done everything right according to our government. That sounds familiar. Financial penalties will only punish middle and lower income demographics. This will set a dangerous precedent. I mean, if you stop to think about it, that's just only a small sampling of it, but I couldn't agree more. I mean, where would this kind of unchecked power, essentially, like, this has to be put to a stop. I get the idea that you're trying to mitigate risk, but this risk assessment is probably the worst planning I've ever seen in any such organization, whether it's governmental or, of course, Steve, you and I both work in lines of business. I've never seen a risk mitigation strategy this poorly executed and this poorly thought of, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, the taxing people is never a great thing. But when you're taxing to punish behavior, is, I think, when you get really, really in trouble.
Yeah.
So you have here, Philadelphia is a good example because a couple of years ago they came up with the soda tax, which is a sales tax. For people who don't live in Philadelphia, they tax, I forget how much it is. I deliberately try to avoid purchasing soft drinks in Philadelphia at this point. But they tax what is it, sugary drinks?
I think
so it's not just soda.
Yeah.
Not just soda, it's like sugary drinks. With, the part of it was, well, we want to encourage healthier habits. You shouldn't be drinking this stuff in the first place, so we're going to tax you for it. And it's not unlike cigarettes in a lot of places are taxed out the wazoo because they are trying to foment a behavior. But and then they try to say, oh well, all of that is going to be used for pre-kindergarten learning, which turned out not to be true. I think only about half of it actually gets but they're trying to force a behavior in their citizens through taxation. And it's a sales tax is a little bit easier to swallow, I think, because you could always just take the position that one, you could buy your drink somewhere else.
Sure.
It's a little harder to move out of Quebec, I would think. And same thing with cigarettes. You could buy them somewhere else. You could choose not to use them. So sales taxes are a little bit easier to kind of get away with, but when you are directly taxing people because of a health decision that they have made, that to me is the hallmark of a totalitarian government.
Couldn't agree
honestly.
more. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And just so people can't use sound bites out of this, not that anybody who watches this would. I'm vaccinated. I know you were vaccinated.
I am vaccinated. Yep.
I encourage vaccination. I think it's great. Get your seatbelt on so we can drive.
Totally.
But that does not mean I'm in favor of mandates, particularly by federal government.
100% agree with that. Yeah,
this tax is just a way to do it.
No, yeah, no question about it. It's a subtle way of trying to put forward a mandate, which is really poor, to be perfectly honest. And this really comes down not only just from a taxation perspective, Steve. I really believe it's personal liberty issue here, and I think that's what the Canadians are seeing. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I have the right to make a decision on my own personal health and wellness, that kind of a thing. And I think when they see a government attempt to do something like this, acting as if they are, the protector of everyone's health and well being, it kind of just flies in the face of personal liberty. And that's always, I don't think it's a slippery slope, but it essentially is like saying, look, I know my own body. I know what, if I take the vaccine, I got to make sure I'm talking to my doctor first. I'm doing all the necessary steps. I'm researching as much as I possibly can about it. I'm not just taking the government's word for it, that kind of a deal. I want to find out additional information, resources, things along those lines, so that I can make an informed decision about what exactly I'm going to be putting into my body to make sure that I'm going to be protected against this virus or not. And once you check off all those lists, you're taking the personal, individual responsibility of your own health, of your own safety, to kind of say, okay, yes, I'm going to elect to do this. This issue here, where it's like you've got this subtle way of like, well, they're going to be paying us. What good would that do to punish somebody in the pocketbook if someone is allergic to one of the ingredients, shall we say, of the vaccine?
Well,
that to me is like that's ridiculous. That is a complete unjustification of putting a tax on somebody. That is, what are they going to do? Like, are they going to like suffer for the rest of their lives because the vaccine is going to make them worse?
If I remember the article correctly, and it might just be I read this in a totally different article on a totally different subject. I thought there was exemption for medical reasons,
and there could be, yeah.
As you know, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it is a personal freedom type of issue.
Oh, yeah.
It's not unheard of for the government to be able to pass laws that affect certain personal decisions about your body. So, for example, there is a legal limit of alcohol consumption.
Yep. 0.08%. Yeah.
Right. And that it's not federal, by the way. That's state.
That's state.
Again, that's a little bit out the window with Canada. I don't know how their system works, but in the US, it's the states that set the legal limit for alcohol. But the main driver behind that is drunk driving.
Yeah.
Because actually there's no legal limit for how much you can ingest, just generally. This is the limit for how much you can drive with.
Yeah.
And so what they're trying to prevent is you being so impaired that you are likely to injure someone else on the road.
Yeah.
But there's, for protecting your own health, they have laws against certain drug use, which are slowly eroding, by the way.
Yeah.
But those are more, I think, about personal health than injuring someone, although under the influence of drugs, you certainly could. So there's that issue.
But that's such a good point too, because to interject there, because it's like sometimes we overthink things, and I think this is a great example of this. They're so hell bent to get this vaccination done that they'll set another law that doesn't really, I don't want to say necessarily affect people, but to your point, like, alcohol is like one thing, and then you've got the vaccine as another, and it's like you'll pay a fine for the vaccine, but you won't pay a fine potentially if you're caught. You'll be thrown in jail if you're operating a motor vehicle, and get involved in a crash, obviously, and they find you to be intoxicated, that kind of a deal. So, it's kind of a weird way the way the law works sometimes,
But here, this is what gets to me about people who are all about mandates, right? And ones that don't, for an employer to say you got to be vaccinated, They have that right, and you can choose not to work there.
Sure.
But what a lot of people seem to want, without thinking about it, is they want the government to be able to say you need to be vaccinated, period.
Yes. That's the risk mitigation that we're talking about here.
But think about those. Think about the laws we just talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
About alcohol consumption, drug use.
Yep.
Those are about saying there's certain things you cannot put into your body, or there's a limit as to how much you can put into your body.
Mm-hmm.
People who want a government vaccine mandate want the government to tell you, you have to put this into your body.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
That's do you really
point. Yeah.
Do you really want to set the precedent?
Yeah.
That the government can tell you that you have to put a foreign substance into your body because they say so.
Yeah.
And okay. And yeah, you can have the excuse for now that, oh, it's you know, it's really not to help other people. It's really, again, just to help yourself and keep you out of the hospital. But
no question,
that's the excuse they'll give you. But then the next time they have something that they want you to put in your body, well, you said we could do it with the vaccine, so you know this is good for you. Oh, is it good for me? Are you the government in the position to tell me what's good to put in my body?
Such a great point. Such a great point. You're
that's
right.
Just that's a precedent you don't want to set.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about an infection fatality rate worldwide that is 0.04%. We're very fortunate in the regard, but 0.04%. So it's not as horrible as other epidemics or pandemics in the past. It's not a 1918. And again, I think also too, the 1918 pandemic, I think what made that so deadly was the fact that it was so, it's almost like the Omicron variant now. But the issue is this Omicron variant is so quick and you're over it in 5 days, 5 to 7 days, let's just say. Whereas the 1918 pandemic, there's no therapeutics, there's no, and they tried everything. They threw the kitchen sink at that whole thing. And it was 2.3% infection fatality rate globally. That was horrible. One of the worst ever in world history. This is only a fraction. Only a fraction of it. And that's Swiss Policy Research, by the way. You have to check that out. But it's really an amazing time that we're living in here. And I think this is, in a way, to wrap this whole thing up, it is really encouraging to see the pushback, not just from the center right, but most people across the board, whether you're left leaning, center, or on the right side. People are saying, hey, wait a minute. They're saying, no, you do not have the authority to do this. Yes, we understand the pandemic is horrible, but you don't have the authority to force a vaccination on this. We have the individual responsibility. That's what personal responsibility is all about. In the broader culture, you look out for yourself, then you look out for your neighbor. It's not the other way around, almost, that kind of a deal. So, yeah, it's crazy. But it's just really grateful that, yeah, we'll talk about that next week, obviously, with John coming back with the ocean.
Yeah, but struck down. I mean, the bottom line is listen to your doctor.
Yes.
About what to put in your body, not don't let the government tell you that, because that's just a path you do not want to go down, and it's only going to end horribly.
Your primary care physician is not the government. It's your family doctor. I think we'll just leave it at that. But moving on, Steve, to our second topic here. You brought this over to me, and I cried internally when this came out. Because you and I both owned a phone like this, didn't we, back in the day?
Reluctantly so, yes. We did.
The old QWERTY keyboard is going away. Steve, go ahead. Take
it. Well, I don't know about the QWERTY keyboard. I think there are still some phones that use that. Yeah. But it was announced several weeks ago that Blackberry is no longer going to support a majority of its prior devices. I think they still have a couple.
Yeah.
out there that are still functioning, but how the mighty have fallen.
Oh,
You, if you still, for some weird reason, still own a BlackBerry, it's probably not going to work anymore.
not anymore. It's amazing. Looking at the article here, the company did note that some BlackBerry devices still using the Android operating system will still work. And those models were launched from 2015 to 18, but the decision to end the support was first made public in September of 2020. And it was that decision was followed by years of struggle by the company trying to keep, basically selling the devices. People were not interested in doing these things anymore, and you and I both have owned Blackberries in the past. I remember that was really my very first smartphone was the Blackberry. Um, it was really
Yeah,
handy. Kind
yeah.
of like right here was, right on the clip. You're able to pull it out. It's like, oh wow, this is really cool. I can text everybody. I've got the, the QWERTY keyboard. It's kind of like right there, even though the buttons were like this tiny.
Oh, they were tiny. They were
Oh
tiny.
my gosh, yeah.
Absolutely. You had to type with your fingernails for
It
sure.
was really just trying, that kind of deal. But then the Apple just blew them out of the water, and then Samsung with the Android that blew them out of the water, and they just never adapted.
It was an interesting case study that they were the first really to do something like this,
Yeah,
and then they kind of were happy to be first, and then they got passed.
they really did.
It's just another along the line of tech that was innovative at first, but then they just stopped innovating.
In
Um,
2010, this is interesting, Steve. In 2010, the BlackBerry device had a market share of more than 40%. 40% of the market share was BlackBerry in
in
2010.
2010,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I
I
mean,
I would have thought the decline actually started before that, but that's still quite a lot,
that's
actually.
really so. You start to think about that. I think the iPhone came out. I think it was maybe a couple of years, maybe a year before then. And so like really what happened was I think Steve Jobs went like this. Everybody wants a tablet, right? And everyone was like, "Oh my God, yes, we do. This is the greatest invention." They're having the tablet, that kind of deal. And then I think if I remember correctly, then Apple went to the iPhone, and that just changed everything. But yeah, they had a 40% market share, and it was so funny. Is in the article you sent me, the ability of the BlackBerry to keep people connected at all hours
Ugh,
even led to the term crackberry.
I remember.
Remember hearing about that? Yeah.
Oh, my first in law school, my first internship in the summer
Yeah.
was in a legal department, and everybody had them, and
Yeah.
they were constantly on them.
Oh, yeah. Well, no one had ever seen anything like this before. Because I remember, like, even in the late 90s when I worked for Comcast back in the day, everything was on, basically on a regular, you're carrying around a cell phone that was literally about, a pretty good handheld size cell phone, and you're texting basically using the button. You boop, 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 boop. You're just pressing buttons multiple times. You're not doing a
Yeah.
QWERTY keyboard at all. Um, but yeah, it was actually by 2016. So just think about this: 6 years later,
Hmm.
BlackBerry was 40%. By 6 years later, BlackBerry's market share had shrunk to 1%. One
I'm
percent
glad. I'm glad you said percent, because I was like, oh, so only
from
one person had
40
a BlackBerry anymore.
from 40% down to 1%. Android then owned the market basically. Android in 2016 had 53%, Apple 43%. So it kind of gives you the idea, and then everything else is. But you have a BlackBerry, and then I guess there's everything else. Maybe Nokia's in there. Who the heck knows? I remember having a Nokia flip phone back in the day. But yeah, it was like, I mean, it just goes to show you the product life cycle. Sometimes it's like when you're the hot new product, and then all of a sudden, technology just like that just changes on a dime.
Passes you by.
And yeah, and the touch screen is really, I think, been the biggest game changer for a lot of people. I'm certainly in business. I know you and I both text back and forth constantly, obviously for both not only for business but for friendship, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I can't even remember. I think I traded that BlackBerry in probably a couple years later for the iPhone. So once
I
everything's
was
like on the screen, it's like, okay, I can just do it right here. I don't have to worry about a keyboard.
when I started my job in 2006, one was not like given to me as a matter of course.
Yeah.
And so my opinion was I'm just gonna lay low, and if somebody asks me if I need one, then maybe I'll cave. But I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut. And I managed to get through a couple months
There you go.
as an attorney, not having a BlackBerry. But once you get it, it's like, and look, it had some good qualities to
It did.
I could check my emails on the train to work. That way I wasn't wasting time when I got to the office.
Yep. Yep.
I could play Brick Breaker on it on the way
Yeah.
home
Yeah.
to entertain my brain.
Kind of pass the time. Yeah, exactly.
Right. But I really do think the legacy of BlackBerry is that was kind of the end of the work life separation.
I would agree.
Right? Because at that point, now you can get emails whenever. You don't have to be logged into a computer. You had a phone number that could be called, and it it really ended the privacy at home anymore.
It sure did. Yeah.
Ultimately, I think that was going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just somebody would have done it eventually. We were headed in that direction. BlackBerry just was the first to do it. So they're not unlike Justin Williams, who I will never forgive for being the first flyer to be younger than me. I will never forgive BlackBerry for ripping down the wall between work and home.
Nice. Nice.
But it's they were just the first to do it. I think it was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But that to me, the Crackberry is their legacy.
It was,
and it's ongoing now. These things are still. I refuse to believe that addiction does not apply to use of.
Oh yeah, I've seen something like this being used as what I like to call a digital pacifier. Meaning that if you have a kid that's 5 years and under and they're acting up in a certain area, all you do is just give them the phone and they're kind of going like this. They're just texting away or whatever. Or they're playing their game or whatever, and it's a digital pacifier. Now,
having had children that age, I cannot fault parents for doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
But a digital pacifier is, I think, a great term.
Yeah.
Even for adults, because there are people who just can't be forced to look away from their phone. I mean, if you're watching Two Noobs, absolutely focus 100% on us.
Yeah, exactly. Especially that guy with the fedora. I mean, come on, you can't go wrong with that. Come on.
Look, I'm not dressing dapper just for my own health. I'm trying to please the public, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
But they Crackberry was the beginning of the end. Unfortunately,
it really was. It really was.
So it's just
now you see people just looking at their phones and they're walking. I don't know how you do that. But I've been guilty of that. Sometimes it's like I'm walking outside and it's like I'm looking at my phone more than I'm looking around and that kind of stuff. I'm walking in the street. I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? I got to put the phone away, for crying out loud.
I am ashamed. I'm ashamed. I find myself doing the same thing. There's a pause, nothing going on. I'm gonna look
down. Yeah.
Look on my phone for a Eagles Flyers article or something, and I'm scrolling for 20 minutes, and before you know it,
time's
gone by. It's unfortunate.
I want those back now. That kind of deal.
It's unfortunate. I gotta figure out a way to break that habit, and I'm still nowhere near as bad as other people that I know, but it's all BlackBerry's fault, and
so good riddance to BlackBerry. No.
It's nice to see them shutting it down now, even though it doesn't do anybody a damn bit of good anymore.
Exactly. Their contribution really, it was like that. In a good sense, it really did usher in like technology to it started that technological revolution, I guess you could say, in American history. Really, they were the first ones to really kind of figure out, oh, wait a minute, okay, if we could put a QWERTY keyboard in someone's hands
and give them the ability to receive email.
Bingo. Yeah. That way you're able to stay connected to your work. If something were to happen, you can just see. But that's the thing. It's always the were to happen says, oh no, we can reach anybody anytime, anywhere.
Right.
That's where the issue comes in. But
Well, to look at the upside of it, though, um, this current pandemic probably couldn't have hit at a better time, because I think those advances, BlackBerry, other things of connecting to cloud storage and cloud computing, more people, we had the ability to survive being shut down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people had the ability to work from home.
Absolutely.
You know, had this happened 25 years ago,
oh my gosh,
everything would have been brought to a standstill.
Yeah.
Initially.
Like, I don't know what, that's such a great point, because I can remember when I mentioned before, I was working for Comcast and was an office setting, and it's like you got the personal computer by you, but no laptop. So you're not taking your work home with you. And all of a sudden,
and there was no cloud storage back then.
Guess who's losing their job, right, at that point? So I mean, it's really, really bad, especially if you're in that kind of an environment. Yeah.
Oh, so from that perspective, there's good and bad with almost everything, and it was interesting that this article just popped up, because having had a BlackBerry for years,
me too.
It's frankly, I didn't know. I thought they had shut down already, so it was actually a surprise to me that they had stuff still out there
who knows, they might have filed for Chapter 7 and they're just all of a sudden getting to it now. Who knows? No,
I thought they were already gone. So it was interesting to see this come up and to finally get some closure.
Yeah,
on BlackBerry.
Yeah. Now it's Android and Apple. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, speaking of the banes of our existence, you found an article or a video or something from CNN that laments that people don't pay attention to them.
I love this, but talk about narcissism and narcissistic idiots, Steve. This is a Not the Bee article here, so it's not the Babylon Bee. Obviously, it's their non-satire site. They have a clip here from Oliver Darcy of CNN being interviewed by Brian Stelter, that paragon of virtue there. And Darcy was essentially bemoaning the fact that people are ignoring cable news. Well, they're more ignoring CNN, because essentially what's happened is, I made this point to you right before we went on. They've lost 80% of their customer base. Basically, 80% of their audience has left within the last year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is an awful, awful lot. And so basically, Stelter asked Darcy if cable news broadly was out of touch with the American people when it comes to COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
Darcy's answer was not that one-word answer you heard from Illinois Smith over there. He says this, quote, "I think it's hard to argue. A lot of the media seems to be very out of touch with people." Really?
He's not wrong.
Really?
Not wrong.
I mean, if you travel the country, people are not really living in the same bubble that it seems that most of the media is messaging toward. Really?
Right.
Wow.
That's right.
I think this is an issue. Because if people are tuning out what's going on in cable news, if we're not messaging toward the general population, they're just ignoring everything and living their lives, and we're not really getting the information they need to them. End quote.
That was 100% accurate.
Yeah. What he fails to mention is CNN goes like this. It leans way to the left. At times, and their audience has left them, no pun intended, for the lack of the better phrase. They're fraud. It's like, I don't even know what to say other than he's exactly right. The problem, though, with them, and the reason why I have never liked the media really since the second Gulf War, really, and that is because I had a gentleman that was involved in that war, namely my father, having troops in the field. So I had inside information of what exactly was going on down in Iraq during that time. And what the media was doing, certain outlets of the media, they were reporting that these soldiers were committing rape, they're doing all kinds of evil things to Iraqi people. None of it was true. None of it. If it was happening, my father would be right on top of it, basically, and saying, okay, yeah, you're out of here. You're going to be court-martialed more than anything else.
As they should be.
As they should be. But none of that was happening. None of it. And so I have had a severe distrust, and I hate using the word severe, but well, I've had a distrust of the media really ever since, to be perfectly honest with you, Steve. I've never trusted anything that they've said. I've always taken things with a grain of salt with them. As a result, and the fact that they have now admitted that after, that Oliver Darcy, after 2 years of constantly beating you over the head that COVID is horrible, 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 and there's no hope for you, you have to take the job, whatever the case may be. It's almost like, dude, you're just now waking up to the fact that, people have been going away from you, getting additional research and saying, oh, wait a minute, COVID's not that bad. It's not as bad as initially feared. We're still taking the precautions we need to take. We don't have to listen to CNN anymore. We don't have to be drumbeat to death with negativity. Serves them right. I mean, maybe this is a wake-up call for them. Who knows? I know they just recently changed their CEO, and their CEO has basically said we need to kind of get rid of opinion-based news reporting now.
Which I would be thrilled with.
I would love for that to happen. Absolutely.
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 You and I talked about this, and before I get to that, just it probably doesn't make them sleep any better at night that I have no idea who Oliver Darcy or Brian Seltzer are. Mainly because
you're not missing anything. Yeah.
It always amazes me that you and John are both like, oh yeah, CNN and Fox, they're all horrible. Yet you guys like watch them.
Well, we get clips from them more than anything else. We'll clip a lot of their episodes, and things along those lines. It's funny you say that, because I have essentially, like, as part of like really cost cutting, I was looking at the budget basically. And I was like, I'm spending like $150 on cable, live TV. I don't watch much live television. I really don't. So I was thinking like, well, and I certainly don't watch any news, if at all. I get most of my news comes from print, or the occasional post that I'll verify, but it's like little things like that. I don't sit down at dinner and have on Fox News all the time, or I watch CNN. It's like, no, I don't know how John does it. I don't. I avoid it, like I said, because I know and I've seen the decline in reporting. I have seen that. I've seen that in the sports reporting. And ESPN is a great example of that. ESPN now is just nothing but opinion-based sports news.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, it's really like, if you get down the real good ones. I'm going to make this a little bit biased here. Living in Philadelphia, NBC Sports Philly is really good. Why? They don't have opinion-based. They tell you what's going on, and then they give their opinion. It's not the other way around. That kind of a deal. But yeah, I barely watch the news, if at all, which has been great for me, because it's like, I'll either get angry watching the news. It's like, this isn't true. And then it's like, and I'll turn it off. And it's like, well, why did I even turn it on? That kind of a deal.
I'm glad you at least ask yourself that question.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about in pre-production the fact that the rise of the opinion-based news is really a direct result of the fact that you have these 24-hour news networks.
Yeah.
And there's just no way you can stick to factual news reporting when you have to fill 24 hours. And I know John likes to blame ESPN for everything, and I think you can do sort of the same thing here. You had ESPN was 24 hours sports network.
Mm-hmm.
And you had games, on a weekday, you had games 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. And so filling that was easy.
Mm-hmm.
Early in the morning, you had Sports Center.
Yeah.
But what did they do? They just ran Sports Center back when it was still reporting on all sports. And, they ran Sports Center at 7 o'clock, and they repeated it at 8 o'clock, and they repeated it at 9 o'clock, and repeated it at 10 o'clock.
It was great.
It was great, because if you missed a part, you could see it again the next hour.
Yeah.
But then the 24-hour news cycle started coming in. You got CNN, you got Fox News. They've got time they got to fill. They don't have games in the evening to be broadcasting. They've got to put something on. So they find moron talking heads, like guys like Tucker Carlson or whoever your friend over there is, Owen Darcy.
Yeah, Oliver Darcy.
Tucker.
Yeah.
Oliver Darcy. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was confusing him with the bonehead who used to play for the Maple Leafs.
Darcy Tucker. Yeah,
Darcy Tucker. Oh, Tucker Carlson, Darcy Tucker. Oh, look at that.
See, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had to fill all this time. So they find these bloated, opinion people who go on and spout nonsense, and they do it in a way to get ratings because they need people to watch. So where you can't just say the easy stuff.
No.
Right. They've got to go into ridiculousness and be over the top. And that's how you get viewers. And I think people are finally waking up to that's not a good thing.
It's really just, it's clickbait. And I think people are getting tired of being clickbaited to death. And that's exactly what this is all about. You see that, I think it's because whatever you can do to try and generate views, it's not necessarily like ratings anymore. For the media, it's all about your views. It's all about your 90-second soundbite that you can slip in there that's way controversial, but so well packaged that people get people talking about said clip. And it's insidious. It's insidious. It is a dangerous practice for the media.
And I guarantee you, 85% of what these people say, they probably don't even actually believe in.
It's all a show. It's all a show. All a show.
Postman
wrote about that in his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, 1980s book. Terrific. Read it. It's really, really good. He wrote about this. He wrote about something along these lines where it's more showmanship. You're putting lipstick on a pig. That's my favorite phrase. But you throw that together and it's like it's still a pig. It's still ugly. But look, it's beautiful. It has a lipstick on it. It's still a pig. It's still terrible. That's the media right then.
This is why local news, the half hour Jim Gardner Action News at 11.
Yeah.
The Fox 10 o'clock news. Those shows pretty much stuck to. There was a 4-alarm fire in downtown Philadelphia. This happened in this place. This happened in this place, and you had very little of kind of the self-important, look at me, opinionated newscasters.
Yeah,
which is again why I say it's a product of the 24-hour cable news cycle.
Yeah,
and it just strikes me funny that only now is someone on the program. Almost like
just now.
Yeah, like it's a revelation to them. Oh my God, people aren't listening to us.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
Why? I love how they do their own psychoanalysis on live television. It's really hilarious. To their 150,000 viewers who are barely hanging on. They're probably all in the airport, by the way, because that's where you find CNN. But yeah,
or gyms.
Yeah, exactly. Gyms. And that drives me crazy. It's like when I see that, it's like, turn that off. You're in a gym, you should be like looking at sports highlights. Come on. But so let's move on here, Steve, really to our fourth topic. And obviously when we're recording this, it's Friday night. This will post next week. So we have no idea what's going to happen with the Eagles-Bucks game. But as correctly
you as the viewer watching now, you have more knowledge than we do.
Exactly. But I would like to mention all of the hosts of Two Noobs, every single one of us, all three of us, correctly predicted that the Eagles would have a 9-8 record on the season. The only question was we didn't know whether or not the team was a playoff team or not. Well, they're in the playoffs. They're the 7th seed. Obviously, the NFC, they got to go on the road, basically, if they're going to have a chance to make the Super Bowl. But let's talk. We're not going to make any predictions on the Bucks because I think if we did that, we end up looking foolish because this will drop Wednesday and who knows, what's going to happen. I think we have an idea of we think might happen, but we're not. We're optimistic, but realistic too.
Look, that they've. It's not impossible.
Yeah,
it could happen.
Exactly. we've beaten that quarterback before, so in the biggest game of the year for
And
the
I
best
did
championship
see
ever.
that somebody said that Brandon Graham might ask to go out for the coin toss to speak to Tom Brady. I thought it would be better if you could somehow find a way to get Nick Foles to go out for the coin toss.
Oh heck yeah, yeah. Maybe we'll
because
get that handshake.
we know Brady wants nothing to do with him.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like showing Dracula the cross. Oh my God.
So it's possible, but if they lose, we're not going to be torn up about it. It's
Yeah.
an expected result. We're an underdog. We know it, and
We know
we'll
it.
hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
2.5% chance, according to Cynthia Freeland in the NFL Network. That's okay. 2.5%. We're good with that. We'll be fine. But let's talk about this season here, Steve. Obviously, Eagles 2-5 to start. Things not looking too good. Sirianni, though, Nick Sirianni, head coach. I mean, I give him a lot of credit, really trying to figure it out. Say, hey, maybe we can run the football. We're going to make this a running team. And my God, was that ever the catalyst for them to win 7 of 9? Talk about a complete role reversal. 7 of 9 games and wild card round. So, I mean,
I tend to say 7 of 8 because that last game.
Well, that's
that wasn't really an effort to try to win.
Yeah, which would have really screwed up our predictions, which kind of a deal. But yeah, let's talk. I mean, what are your thoughts on Sirianni, the job he's done, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I worried early on that he was overmatched.
Oh yeah,
but I think he figured some things out. I think most importantly, he has the respect in the locker room.
Yeah.
The players buy into what he's doing. Everybody laughed when he came out and made this flower analogy.
Yeah.
I wasn't one of them. I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. It's not an analogy I would have used, but I'm not going to sit here and laugh at the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And who's laughing now? You won 9 games. You're in the playoffs. I don't care who was on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You had to win those games. You won those games. Okay.
NFL teams. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And it seems to be a thing with every coach we get in here that they don't seem to stick with what got you there. There's games where like it makes sense to run and he starts out with like 3 straight passes. And we think, what in the world is he doing? But he's an NFL coach. I'm not. I can't, say that what he's doing is wrong. I can only see I can only say what I see.
Yeah.
But he finished with a winning record.
Yeah.
He got the players to buy in. He's gotten a lot out of this team. I was impressed with the job he did. He's the only head coach, first year head coach this season to get a team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's kudos to him. He did a great job.
Heck yeah. I mean, I think it was interesting you brought up the whole flower comment because I remember when that was happening at 2-5 and you're thinking like, my mind was thinking, are you freaking kidding me right now? You're 2-5 and you got a flower metaphor happening here? Like, what is going on? This whole thing about gardens and plants, and it's like, yeah, we're going to see the results later. I'm thinking, like, really? Like, I'm hearing that. If I'm in the locker room, I'm like, I'm not so sure. But then again, I was in the locker room. I'm not a part of that entire team culture. And to your point, Steve, you're exactly right. They bought in. Like, that really, I think it was just, that was the start of something. And then it was just like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I've got to adjust on the fly. And I think that's the key. It's like, if you're trying to pass the ball and it's not working with the young quarterback, it's like, okay, what else can you do? Well, you can run it. And we got a pretty good offensive line here. We may not be youthful in our offensive line, but we got experienced blockers. We can diagram some plays. I've got a great offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland, who I think is just like the best they've ever had, ever in the history of in the history.
I would completely agree.
In the organization. I've got this guy in my back pocket. Let's run the football behind Lane, behind Mailata. Let's mix it up. Let's get the ball into our backs' hands, and we can run the football and then do play action. Holy cow, what a change. And it was like that game against Detroit was the watershed moment because it was like they get that. They pound the Lions, a team that they have traditionally struggled with in the beginning part of, in any year, and they pounded them, and it was like, whoa, okay, they finally figured out something here, and then they just took off like a rocket. I mean, it was just amazing to see. So I give Sirianni a ton of credit, and the fact too, you got 3 first-round picks.
Yep.
Coming into next year.
Yep.
I mean, what a tremendous rebuild. You're doing a rebuild on the fly, and this is exactly how you do it. You get the pick from Miami, you get the pick from the Colts that turned into a first round pick. Thank you very much, Carson. And then of course like where you drop in here, so it's like, and that kind of a deal. My question to you is, Steve, with that being said, do you use those 3 first round picks to trade up? Do you trade down, or do you stay and build around Jalen using those first 3 first round picks?
A few weeks ago, we had a conversation about Jalen Hurts, and I said I wasn't convinced at the time he was the long-term quarterback, even though I wanted him to be, because I like his intangibles. I like his focus. I like his energy. I like his drive, his competitive nature.
Yeah.
I'm still not at the point yet, I think, where I anoint him as the long-term guy. But I think I'm ready to go through another season with him. He's done some good things. I want to see him do good things against some good defenses.
Yeah.
The thing that's kind of been my bugaboo with him the whole time was there were people. I think it was a Giants game where they said he missed Dallas Goedert wide open in the end zone. Like he didn't see him or whatever. And look, he's And there was Sirianni and Hurts both gave what I found convincing arguments to me that, okay, they saw the pre-snap coverage. He was not going to be in the progression based on how they were playing it. And I watched the play develop, and the guy who was supposed to cover him did a really shitty job and went in the totally wrong spot. It was like watching the Three Stooges. I don't know. So I can see the argument where, he wasn't supposed to be in the progression, so he threw the ball where it was supposed to go. I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no problem with that. So that's not my issue with him. My issue with him was more accuracy to the receivers, because we've seen him miss guys who are wide open, like throwing. There's a guy open, you throw him, and you miss. And I think more than that is in that same Giants game. If you look, he had a bomb to Devontae Smith, where Smith had to come back to the ball.
Yeah.
If he throws it and hits him in stride, he's in the end zone for a touchdown.
Yeah.
They had to run more plays to get in the end zone because he threw it short. And there were a couple other like deep plays where the one, I think it was to Quez Watkins, he wrestled it away from the defender. Like, again, there, if you threw it where he should have been, it's probably a touchdown. So I'd like to see him get I'd like to see him get better with his accuracy, and I think he is. And hopefully that's something that can continue to improve. So for next year, I say stick with him as your quarterback for next year. Use your 3 picks to, I don't think you try to trade and package. I think you need good bodies.
No question.
Let's get 3 first-round bodies in here.
Yeah. And I would think also too on the defensive side of things, because you are aging on the defensive side, really in all 3 positions. So if you've got a really good, if you get a Fletcher Cox rookie essentially on the line, you get a middle linebacker and you get a really good free safety, and you say like to McLeod, okay, that's like he's 30, he's like in his 30s now. Very old for a safety. But if you get a young safety back there, all within the first 3 picks, you're shoring up your defense. And it's like you could give it at least one more go on the offensive side of on the ball. But it's like I think the biggest need I think for the Eagles is really on the defensive side, because they roll out that same unit again next year. You're talking another year of Fletcher Cox. You're talking another year of Rodney McLeod. You have no linebacking core really to speak of. Maybe an Alex Singleton, maybe somebody else in there. I know there's a couple of other people I'm missing out, and I know if John were here, he'd tell me. But yet you need an established, like really good linebacker. I think if you can find one of those, that's going to it's going to go a long way. I think for the health of the defense going forward.
I totally agree. I think they still need some wide receiver help, but I think at
Oh,
this
yeah.
point you address that with a vet rather
Yes.
than yet another rookie.
You don't need a second round pick on a wide receiver. That hasn't worked out. You get a veteran in there, really kind of just like either elevate Rager with the veteran. You move Rager to the slot probably.
I was gonna say push Rager out, but
Or push Rager.
do whatever you want to do. That's fine.
Trade him to the Giants for a bag of footballs. Who the heck knows? Maybe they need some offense up there. I don't know.
We need some footballs for sure.
So that too.
Yeah, but I
tremendous
just also
first year. Yeah, tremendous first year for Sirianni and the entire Eagles. I mean, no one I don't think ever expected this for them to make the playoffs. Yeah,
I think however far we get in the playoffs is just I think gravy.
Icing on the cake. Yeah.
You said we all picked 9-8 and we weren't sure if it was the playoffs or not.
Yeah.
We made the playoffs. That's great.
That's unbelievable.
So that was kind of the expectation. Anything else is above expectation, and that's terrific.
Yeah.
So let's see how they do against Tampa. Just before we get off the subject, I do want to. I love Jordan Mailata, man.
Oh yeah,
he's awesome. His personality, and the way he plays and his personality are just so cool.
Oh yeah.
And that the whole offensive line, like Kelsey, Lane Johnson, I love all those guys. They're awesome.
And Stoutland is just, I mean, to take a guy that's playing rugby in Australia and to mold him into this starting left tackle. I mean, he's made him into an NFL left tackle, this rugby football player. Really an amazing story. And I think it's going to be something like if you see a Mailata continue to progress, continue to get better, if he makes him into a Hall of Famer, Jeff Stoutland's going to be you got to put a statue up for Jeff Stoutland. I'm serious. I mean, he's like he's got to be the best offensive line coach I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And Kelsey just got his fourth All-Pro nomination.
And he's probably going to be in the Hall. I mean,
he should be.
He should be in the Hall. Yeah.
He does things that I never see any other centers do. Now, I only basically see centers that are playing against the Eagles, but I never hear an announcer calling out, "Oh, look at this center 10 yards upfield, taking people out while his running back's behind him."
Yeah.
It's
the most athletic center and the best center. Obviously, too, in the Eagles' history, too. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, no question about that. So before we get out of here, let's hit up the happy here, Illinois. And this one was really cool. PhillyVoice.com article. Hero Wawa employee performs life-saving CPR on woman in Millville store. John Wallop, we want to give you a shout out, 2 Noob style. 19 years old, working a double shift at the Wawa on West Main Street in Millville on Friday. A customer informed him a woman was in distress inside the bathroom. He goes in there. She's not breathing. She can't breathe. On the ground. He goes over. He knows CPR. He performs CPR. He did 75 chest compressions to this woman. 75 chest compressions. Briefly shows signs of life. Still in a dangerous state. He kept doing it. He kept CPR. Kept it up. She came back to life, started to breathe. Paramedics were called. They rushed her to the hospital. She's fine. She's 100%. And they were able to transport the woman to a nearby hospital to make a recovery. And I think she's recovered, I believe. But it was essentially like a cardiac arrest type of deal. And he left in action. 19 years old doing this. And he said he did the CPR. Fantastic. Yeah, he did the CPR with in a class that his grandmother said, "You should do this. I'll come with you." And so he's working at a Wawa one day, and all of us. I mean, that's just tremendous. So John Wawa,
good on the grandmother for getting him involved. Good on him for agreeing to do it, and absolutely fantastic action by this young man. that's, this is the kind of people we need
Hell
these
yeah.
days, not the dumbass talking heads.
No.
What John Wallop? Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
70. I still can't get over 70. He didn't give up. I mean, that was the one thing that I took from the article. He's like 75 compressions. He's working on her, trying to get her back to life. That's just remarkable. For a 19-year-old.
I took a CPR class. Got it. I guess it's 25, 27 years ago. Now, back when I first started working at the YMCA.
Yeah.
So I'm probably out of practice, but I think more people should do it, for not just helping strangers, but helping, people close to you, because you never know when it might come in handy. And, again, great on this young man for leaping into action, doing the right thing. Because the article said that, a lot of people who go into cardiac arrest never recover because people don't intervene.
Yeah.
And so for him to show the courage and get in there and actually do it, rather than just kind of stand around and watch.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic article.
Such a great story. Yeah. So John, great job, man. Two Noob style. We appreciate you, brother. That was really awesome, and I'm glad you did it, and glad that training came into practice. That's for sure. And I'm glad you saved that woman's life for sure. So, yeah. So that wraps it up. Episode 67 of Two Noobs Talking. We're 34 episodes away from 100, Steve. So we're getting there. Chipping away. Yeah, that kind of deal. So as always, it was a great time being able to chat with you and share some thoughts. But yeah, before we get out here, let's hit them up with our socials, and where can people find us?
Shameless plugs. We can be found on Instabook and Facegram and no, but
be found on those.
Way to ruin a good story, Matt. Jeez. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. They are all short videos which are designed to lead you to.
That would be our YouTube channel, the Two Noobs Talking Podcast. Like, share, subscribe, and get notified when our episodes drop, if I can get it out. And of course, leave a comment. Let us know what you're thinking on the audio side, Steve.
On the audio side, we are proudly hosted by Podbean. I was about to say Proudbean. I got that right. iHeartRadio, you can find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast. Rumor has it that John has taken Spotify out of his doghouse. I would love to get an explanation on that, because I'm still waiting on the explanation as how the Spotify got into his doghouse.
Yeah, exactly.
In the first place.
Yeah.
But for the moment, I remain with my skepticals. And we'll say Spotify still sucks until I am proven otherwise.
Wrong. Exactly.
I am a lawyer and a scientist. I need evidence. So present me the evidence that Spotify does not suck, and I will retract all those statements.
Fantastic.
But until then,
fantastic. And then our show notes for all of our articles and clips and everything. You can go to twonoobstalking.wordpress.com. And again, I'll say it for the radio listeners. How about that? twonoobstalking.wordpress.com. A little pause there.
There you go.
So there you go. So that wraps it up. Episode 67 of Two Noobs. Steve, Illinois Smith, you have anything final to say before we get the heck out of here?
Oh, what can I steal from here?
Well, you can't reach across to get.
I want that stars pennant. I think that would look good
on
my wall.
No. Talk to you all next week. Take care.
Adios.
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed. That's a great question. What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore.